Okay, so this is not an episode of Jetpack Swords. This is me trying something completely new. My name's Greg. I'm normally the host of Jetpack Swords, a super cool, awesome video game podcast. And this is not that. This is maybe a podcast called HomeScreen or maybe a podcast called Homepage. I don't know. I don't know if this is even going to become a podcast. This is just, I kind of like technology and I like to talk about tech related things. And so I'm just going to talk to myself about it for probably 15 minutes or so. And if you listen, great. And if you came here for Jetpack Swords, then I'm sorry. I probably won't continue posting this as part of Jetpack Swords. But yeah, I'm just going to give it a try. I'm just experimenting. And what has spurred this on is today is September 21st, and Microsoft had an event today. And I think technically it was supposed to be a quote-unquote Surface event, which is their product hardware product lineup. But in reality, it ended up being basically a quote-unquote Copilot event, which is their new like AI quote-unquote, feature branding set type thing. And it was kind of cool. And so I'm just going to I watched it today and I'm just going to go through my notes and kind of talk about it. Obviously like a lot of it, like I said, is talking about what they're calling Copilot, which is just like this AI assistant that kind of like spans across everything, whether that be Windows or Bing or Edge or whatever. I guess one of my few gaming related notes here, because I'm going to post this on the Jetpack Swords page, is, it is so sad that it feels like this is what Cortana should have been. This is what they were trying to achieve with Cortana. And it's a shame that they couldn't use this branding because like we're getting closer and closer and closer to the like actually useful, hey Cortana, do the thing type thing. And so that's probably my single gaming related note here. That's actually not true. We'll get to it when we talk about the hardware in a little bit. So. There's going to be a new Windows 11 update coming out in 5 days on September 26th. Most of it is not particularly exciting. Again, it's a lot of Copilot integration. And there's some cool stuff in there, right? Like you can bring it up at any point in time and it knows what's on your screen, which like for reference is not a new thing. Like this was a thing that like existed a long time ago. I think it was called Google Now on Tap on Android. Or like you bring up Google Now or Google, what is now Google Assistant, and I think what was then called, obviously, Google Now on Tap. And it would, be like, oh, look at your screen. Look, you got like a thing. You got an address about your screen. You can pull up stuff about, that type of thing. So it's not new, but it's still like, look kind of cool. Let's see. They had it was pretty cool. They showed a demo of, what I quote unquote seamless integration where they use the snipping tool, which is just like take a screenshot of part of your page. And then they like talked to Copilot and they were like, hey, can you do something to the screenshot? And then, okay, now send it. And it's like, text it to yada, 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 person. And because of the My Phone pairing, that worked, right? Like the Copilot built into Windows 11 could, take the screenshot that you just took with the snipping tool, modify it directly, and then send it off to someone, which was like a really cool demo. They didn't show any gaming features though, right? Like again, pretend this is Jetpack Swords, and there were no gaming features. Like it feels like they could do something, but obviously, like most things, business is where the money is at. Consumers don't pay the bills most of the time, and so it's not surprising that a lot of the things they showed off are more focused or more tailored towards like a person at their job. But I could easily see them expanding Copilot into gaming in certain ways. Like some of it could be what they've already done on Xbox, like hey, record that, like a long time ago. But there's even simple things like, what's my FPS on this game? What's my CPU temp? What's my GPU temp? What do you have? Are there tips for improving these things? Stuff like this. Like it feels like there's some very obvious like things that they could probably do with gaming. And honestly, they may already work. Like because it's these large language models that are trained on like entire subsets of data, like some of the things might already work just naturally, and other stuff like they probably have to do special things to like read hardware values and stuff like that. But so I mentioned obviously the phone integration. That is really cool. Some people may not be a huge fan of that. And if you are not the type of person that like likes things being integrated, then I could totally see you being annoyed with this. And so honestly, like I made a note here, like they need an option to completely disable this set of features, or at least disable individual parts of it, right? Like, because the example they gave was find my October New York flight info from my texts, which like that is a very cool premise that you could then do that and then like paste that into your calendar or Word or an email or something like that. But I totally get that people would be creeped out by that. So this absolutely needs to be something where like you can disable this entirely, or you can disable bits and pieces of it. They kind of described this entire thing as like copy, paste, and do, which I feel like is like I feel it's a good way to summarize it. Like trying to be useful. Like I'm going to copy something, I'm going to paste it, and I'm going to, I want to do something with it. Like there's a reason I'm copy pasting it. And so like if you can build tools to help me do the thing that I want to do in the first place, then that's excellent. Let's see. They're also introducing what they call Ink Anywhere, which I swear to God, I thought this was already a thing. But it's just, again, like if you have a Surface thing or whatever, you can just take your pen, you can literally write anywhere. Again, literally thought this was a thing already, but apparently not. And the interesting thing is, if you've watched or listened to one of our previous episodes, you'll know I got a new phone recently. I got the Samsung Galaxy S23 Ultra, which has the pen in it. And I will say what Microsoft showed is nicer than that, because the like writing with the pen for text only works with the Samsung keyboard. If I use Gboard or another keyboard, writing with the S Pen doesn't work. It doesn't fill in those fields. And so like Ink Anywhere, quote unquote, Windows 11 looks great. Let's see. So Clipchamp, this was also interesting because this is actually something I've used when I was like getting started with Jetpack Swords and like trying to figure things out and what I wanted to do. Like Clipchamp was one of the things that, I toyed around with. Like, actually, I think the very, very first episode was actually technically edited in Clipchamp, even though I didn't post the video anywhere, obviously, because Clipchamp is normally a video editor. It was actually an acquisition. And so it's kind of cool to see like, really good like integration of an acquisition inside of like the full product suite. But the thing they showed, in terms of, again, this is all about AI or whatever, quote unquote. And they showed, here's this video I took, make me a shorter one with the highlights of it, which is a very cool thing that lots of people want to do. And this kind of ties into something they talked about later on as well, when they got into like the true business focus aspect of it, like what they call Microsoft 365 Copilot. Again, it's all the similar branding, which I really do appreciate, like the clear, consistent branding and vision of this. Like I feel like that is a good thing to have. Like it's pretty clear to me. And we talked about this a little bit actually in the most recent episode of Jetpack Swords, where we talked about they had a huge leak of Xbox stuff. And there was a quote on there of them trying to like organize across their different divisions and Xbox, like a clear, concise vision and strategy for, like this like cloud hybrid computing world. And so it's pretty clear to me that they at least have some semblance of vision and strategy, like top-down vision and strategy, right? Like it seems to me that it is an organization that is at least attempting to work as one, as opposed to the different parts of the body going off and doing their own thing. And like, again, I think that's like branding everything the same is obviously like the lowest bar possible. But yes, everything is Copilot, quote unquote. And to get back to where I was, if I can find myself in my notes and my rambling here, because this is what this is. This is literally just me rambling. And I thank you if you're listening to this, I thank you for listening to me. But so one of the things they did, again, with, Microsoft 365 Copilot was apparently there was a video. And I actually think this is fucking amazing, because like, this is something that I've wanted to do. I both in personal time and in, like my work life, which is, here is a video, go find a quote from person, and it's something like this. And then it goes and it uses speech text, obviously, on the video, do this transcript, stuff like that. And then it pulls the quote from the video that you described without you having to go and search back through it and find it. And like, it was just so cool. Like it really made me happy. I was really pleased by that. Okay. So moving on. Next in my notes here is Bing/Edge, obviously shopping co-pilot. I'm, to be entirely honest, like I mentioned, I appreciate the fact that they have like this clear, consistent branding and vision for Copilot. And I also think this is really cool, but I am also super skeptical. This is the stuff that demos really well, and in reality, half the time is completely worthless. And so, like, I have no idea how useful this stuff will actually be, but like shopping Copilot, I could see this. Like, this looked potentially promising. Like, I want to buy, I want to buy this, and like, this is what I want to use. And like, I think maybe the example they gave was like shoes or cleats or something, and they were like, yeah, I want to use it for this particular thing. And so like, filter results to that. Again, I am very skeptical of how useful it actually is. Let's see. So in the Bing/Edge realm of things, Bing Image Creator is getting updated to DALL-E 3, which is OpenAI's, image generation model thing. And I'm excited for this. I played with the Bing Image Creator before. And just in general, like, I loved it. I also downloaded Stable Diffusion, I believe, because I have an NVIDIA GPU. I downloaded Stable Diffusion. I played with that locally on my computer. But I just love the fact that like they are making this technology so accessible for free to everybody. Like, Bing Image Creator is actually really cool. Like, go play with it. Like, you can just, the other day, literally in bed, I was like, dude, cats don't really have floppy ears like dogs do. What would that look like? And so I literally just go to Bing Image Creator, I type in, cat with floppy dog ears. And like, it produced a kind of horrifying image, to be entirely honest, in a way, but I still thought it was super cute. I was just like very pleased with it. So like, again, like, just go play with Bing Image Creator. It's actually super cool. And so the fact that they're upgrading it to DALL-E 3, which theoretically should be, better, actually more accurate images, is awesome. Honestly, I would like to use it for creating a podcast logo for Jetpack Swords. And I played around with it initially, and I couldn't get anything that looked good. And so like, I'll probably give it another go with this. But that also raises another question of, I have no fucking idea if I'm allowed to use anything from it for commercial things. I mean, we don't make any money off Jetpack Swords, but if we were to one day, are we liable because I used that to make an image for it? Like, I honestly don't know. And they said that they're marking these things as like created by AI, which is like good. But again, like, it's still super unclear to me what the fucking legality of all this stuff is. And I mean, like, there's an ongoing lawsuit of like our authors suing OpenAI for like using their stuff, which again is just like it's so ambiguous. And it's like, can you sue an actual human being for writing like, if it's Stephen King, for example, or whatever, like, and it's some like horror or mystery or thriller thing, like, can you sue another human being for writing a book that's like similar to a Stephen King book? Like, I kind of don't think you can. And so like, I don't know. It's super weird, but that's like a whole other thing. And again, I would like to be able to use, an image creator to like make a logo for these podcasts. And I just am unconvinced that I would be able to without getting into legal trouble. And so like, that needs to settle. The dust needs to settle. So it's very obvious what is allowed and what isn't. One of the other things they showed was, along this note is, so when I was playing around with the initial release of Bing Image Creator and comparing it to Stable Diffusion locally, one of the obvious drawbacks compared to Stable Diffusion was like, Stable Diffusion is like, you could provide a source image and you could like, it was easier to like modify, tweak, refine, iterate. And I could not figure out how to do that with Bing Image Creator. I don't think you could at all. Whereas now they've, integrated that into the chat experience as well. So you can like chat with Bing Chat and like work with Bing Image Creator and be like, okay, make me an image, like blah. Okay, take that, but also like change the background to be grass or something like that, And so like the fact that you can like actually iterate on it now is like very exciting. Again, it's so cool to me that these are just, they're just taking something and making it readily available to everybody, which is just really, really cool. And in the same, similar vein of like chatting about images and manipulating them, you can obviously like submit an image now and ask a question about it. So that's really cool too. Okay. So rambled on a lot. Obviously, it's going to be some more rambling on, but there's not a ton here, so I will be quick. So going to the business area, to be entirely honest, a lot of the stuff they showed wasn't very special. Like it feels silly to say very standard AI stuff when like a lot of this like really became like pop culture, I guess, in the past like 10 months. And so it's silly to say like it's common or not special or whatever, but a lot of it was like very like, he's like, oh, summarize my emails, or like, hey, write me an email about this, or like, write me a summary about this for a doc, like, you know. But that being said, it does feel like they are taking the technology and they're applying it very well, right? Like it's, again, a pretty good, or from their demoware, which demoware always looks good. It seems like they're doing a very good job of like producing a comprehensive suite of, I mean, they already have a comprehensive suite of products, and it feels like they're doing a good job of integrating this into all those things appropriately. And again, who the fuck knows how accurate it's going to be, or like how useful it's actually going to be. One of the things they mentioned, which is just like a key to me, whether this be for businesses or for consumers, is, and this is true for Bing Chat today, it produces references and footnotes. And like, you know, these large language models, the term that's used is hallucinations. They fucking hallucinate all the time. They produce random bullshit very frequently. And so having references and footnotes is mandatory for these types of things. And so like, I just, you know, I'm very glad they have that, because it is so mandatory that you actually cite. I mean, it's mandatory for fucking humans too, right? Like, cite your fucking sources. And so like, yeah, that's just straight up. Ignore it. Take it out of the question. Cite your fucking sources. Like, period. The end. It's a good thing to do. There's a very interesting quote as they were talking about this, which was, the more you work with it, the more natural with it becomes, which is, if you look back on the launch of Bing Chat, is very amusing, because initially Bing Chat, I think, let you do like 30 things in a conversation or something like that. And then they like quickly rolled it back, because again, it started fucking hallucinating, or like becoming belligerent, or just saying like crazy fucking shit. And so I just find it interesting that they're now like, yeah, you know, talk to it more, you know, like you have longer conversations with it. And it's like, this was a problem initially. And so like, I'm not entirely convinced that it's fixed, but like, who knows? Let's see. Outlook Sound Like Me. This was cool. It's basically just like generate an email, but also make it sound like me, which is very cool, mainly because they have these general purpose models, you know, these deep learning, large language models, whatever they are. I'm not a machine learning or AI guy. I write normal code. I'm like a normal software engineer, not a fancy software engineer. But my general vague understanding of this field is that basically, like, it's really hard to have models that do everything. And maybe that's not true anymore. Maybe that's the recent breakthrough. But this seems cool to me. This Outlook Sound Like Me, because it's basically, they have this large language model that's trained on these, you know, trillions of tokens or whatever, and it can do all of these things, and then being able to take that so it can work generally for anybody. Like, random person comes in with no context and they ask a question and they get an answer, but then also like make a sub-model of it based on your own personal input is very cool to me. And again, I don't actually understand how this field works, but it seems like that's a very important thing, to be able to take a model and then basically make sub variants or sub models of it. And it's like, that's super exciting. Okay. So the last thing that I found very interesting about, you know, Microsoft 365 Copilot and all of this stuff is they announced this thing called Copilot Lab, which is basically just, quote, a place to experiment and learn the art and science of prompting. And that's cool because, yeah, like this is a skill, and this is not a new skill to have. This is a variation of an existing skill, which is just learning how to search on web browsers or on search engines. Like there's a running joke of the in the trades in the trade industry, it's you paid a plumber $1,000 to come and turn a knob or something like that, and it's like, well, why did I pay you for 5 minutes of work? And it's you paid them because they knew which knob to turn or whatever, right? Like that's the summary. And in software engineering, it's oh, you just copy pasted code from the internet, and the equivalent there is you're paying them because they know which code to copy paste. And it's because searching is a skill, right? Like being able to search adequately and find good results is a super important, valuable skill in any field whatsoever. And so honestly, like Copilot Lab should just be a fucking normal thing. Like take all the AI out of it, just produce a thing that teaches people how to search on Google or on Bing or whatever. That should be a thing. Like that is a valuable skill and tool to have. And so I'm glad that Copilot Lab is going to exist to help people with the new era of things. But like, honestly, like there's value in the old one as well. Okay. So my last note on Copilot, and they touched on this briefly, is this concept of plugins. And in my opinion, this is going to be absolutely crucial to any of these things succeeding, because Microsoft or Google or OpenAI, none of these people, despite how big and how massive they are, can produce a tool that works everywhere all the time, no matter with every single service and product you use. They have to be able to support plugins, right? Like they cannot do that themselves. They need to provide like an open, extensible API or SDK for other people to integrate with it, which is very similar to kind of the smart home things, right? Like, Alexa or Google Assistant don't directly do all these things. You add skills to them a lot of the times is what they call it. Because again, they have these, open, extensible APIs and SDKs that you can integrate with. And that is going to be so crucial in this new AI large language model stuff. Okay, so that's software. Onto hardware to wrap this up, which is how they wrapped it up. They announced 2 new pieces of hardware, Surface Laptop Go 3 and the Surface Laptop Studio 2. I am honestly disappointed they didn't announce the Surface Duo 3, which is their Android phone, which is 2 screens. So it's most of the current devices out there are foldable screens. And it is, you can see the like crease in the skin, and honestly, they're very good. They're very good foldable screens. But I still kind of liked the Surface Duo 2. Like whenever I played with it at Best Buy or wherever, I just liked that it was 2, distinct things as opposed to one thing. And like it had a different use and feel. And it was just, the Surface Duo 2 was a very nice piece of hardware. And so it would have been cool to see a Surface Duo 3. But so the Surface Laptop Go 3 is kind of interesting in general to me, because it's like, I think they described it as like the thing for students or whatever. And it's just so funny whenever like a company tries to, like market themselves simultaneously as premium and budget, right? Like the Surface line is undeniably a premium line of hardware, right? It is high quality. It has nice finishes. It just tends to work well. I think they said like they have the highest customer satisfaction scores of any laptop, and I would believe it. Like they make very nice hardware these days. And so it's just super funny to me when it's like, yeah, this is the budget of the premium, and it's like, this is, the budget Surface, and it's $800 fucking dollars, right? Like that is not budget. And so this combination of premium and budget is just so funny to me. The other piece of hardware they talked about was the Surface Laptop Studio 2. And I didn't even know there was a first one. And I watched this video, and it looks super cool because it is just like, so the things I did know about before, because they've made a lot of Surface branded things at this point. They had a Surface Pro, they had a Surface Book, they had a Surface Studio, and a Surface Laptop. So the Surface Pro is their like very initial thing, which is basically just a tablet with a kickstand and the pen and a magnetically attaching keyboard. That was like their thing that I feel like was very popular. I had the Pro 3, I think, which is when they kind of started to get good. Like the 1 and 2 were kind of meh, and then from the 3 on, they were like pretty solid devices. So the Surface Book was a kind of laptop, but not really. It was a laptop with a detachable screen that you can use as a tablet. And I actually really liked this. I thought this was super cool design, but like it was clearly kind of a little jank, which I think is why they don't do it anymore. So you could detach the tablet or the screen and use it just as a normal tablet. And then when you docked it, the GPU was in the base. So it was like, I just thought it was really cool. And I like that idea of like dockable GPU stuff, which is totally doable with other stuff, like with Thunderbolt specifically. Like there are companies that make basically cases and closures that you keep on your desk that you store a GPU and a fan and potentially extra storage in, and then you use a single cable to connect it to a laptop. And so you can go from a normal laptop on the go, sit down at your desk, plug it in, and then you have like, you know, an RTX 4060 sitting there blasting away playing games or whatever. And I just do think that's really cool. Which the Surface Book was not fat, obviously. It was still just like, it was still basically a laptop, but I just thought it was cool. And they made a Surface Studio, which is kind of like, you know, the iMac type thing. It was the all-in-one computer. It's another thing, but it had this like beautiful, like huge display and this beautiful hinge that like, you know, you could angle it how you wanted. It was like, that was marketed for like the art people. And then obviously the Surface Laptop came later, which is like a very traditional clamshell laptop. Anyways, I've rambled a shit ton. The Surface Laptop Studio 2 seems to be like this perfect blend of all of these things of like, it is kind of just a clamshell laptop, but also like it has this like, you can like fold the screen down to like be flat and like use your pen on it and stuff. And like the way the screen folds down like reminds me of the Surface Studio, which I think is obviously why it's called the Surface Laptop Studio. But yeah, so it looked like a beautiful fucking computer. Honestly, neither of these things were like super thin, but like, quite frankly, I think that's okay. Like, I don't think you actually need your laptop to be super crazy thin. Like, I think the thin technology trend was kind of overblown, to be entirely honest. And so I'm okay with it not being the thinnest thing on the planet. It does come with like an RTX 4050 or 4060 from NVIDIA. And so like, that means if you're playing games on it, you know, you obviously get the RTX ray tracing, you get the DLSS, you know, AI upscaling. And it's like, it is just like, it is quite a beast of a machine, like to the point where they said, you know, twice the graphics performance than a MacBook Pro M2 Max, which is always kind of amusing to me when like they say that on stage, because it sounds as if like they're claiming that as their own achievement. And like, that's not Microsoft's achievement to claim. That's NVIDIA's achievement to claim, right? Like they're the ones making the GPU, like not Microsoft. I mean, I get that they're making like the complete package, and so like it feels kind of fair, but I don't know, just it's still kind of funny to me. But also then my note on that is like, it probably does. I mean, not probably, it definitively does. They showed a demo, like it did the rendering much faster. It probably also draws twice the power, probably twice as fast and draws twice the power. So like if you're probably using it, the battery life on it is probably shit compared to a MacBook Pro M2 Max. But anyways, I think that is basically it. Oh, I have one other note. They described the touchpad on it as the most inclusive touchpad on any laptop. I think they called it adaptive touch. It's a like toggleable setting, and they demoed somebody with no fingers on one of their hands using it. And honestly, like it was a really touching demo, and it makes sense. I mean, they were the ones who made the adaptive controller. Like, you know, I feel like things existed before the adaptive controller for Xbox, but that was the first like really big mainstream one. And like now Sony's making one, and like these are things that like, oh, they also have like adaptive pen grips and stuff for, you know, the pens for the Surfaces. And like these are things that like they don't have to do, and I am highly skeptical of, you know, the cynics out there would say, yeah, they don't have to do it. They do it for the goodwill that people like you are spouting on right now. You know, they're just doing it for the good press. And like, I am sure that they are doing it for good press. Don't get me wrong. I am just highly skeptical that the return on investment from the good press compared to what they put into this and the adaptive controller and the adaptive grips for the pen is actually technically worth it, quote unquote. And maybe it's break even. I don't know. I just think it's cool. I'm glad they do it. And if they do it because I'm wrong and the ROI is, you know, worth it for them, then okay, fine. And if they do it just because they want to do it, And again, I think it's because they have billions of dollars and they can afford to lose a bit of money here and there. It is what I think. So I don't know. That's my 2 cents. I thought it was cool. And yeah, I'm going to wrap up. Like I said, September 21st, they had a Microsoft event today. Ended up being 30 minutes instead of 15 minutes. But thank you for listening. This is not Jetpack Swords. Obviously, this is just Greg. I don't have James or Packy here with me. But yeah, thank you. Have a good day, everybody. I hope you like technology as much as I do. Bye.